And good evening, everyone, and welcome to this special rebroadcast of Chapter 1, The Invitation, and a preview of Chapter 2, which airs on Thursday, 5:30 p.m. Eastern on KGRA Digital Broadcasting Facebook, KGRA DB on Rumble, KGRA DB on YouTube, and at Global Radio X, Global Radio Live on X. So John will be joining us shortly. He looks like he may have had a technical issue as we were going on air. But what about that music? I really want to know who is the person behind the scenes that does this content creation, also the animation. Some of you may have already seen Chapter 1, The Invitation, but we're going to air it for those who may have not and missed it. It's approximately 11 minutes long, and we did get some feedback that it was a little short. And yes, but that's more setting the stage of what's to come in this 22 chapter animated series. Now, the final chapter will air on Christmas Eve at noon Eastern, and there is a reason why it has to air on Christmas Eve. And I believe John Burroughs is with us now. What's up, John? Oh, I don't know if you can hear us, but you can work out those technical issues as we're on the air. But we are going to rebroadcast Chapter 1 again for those who may have missed it, and we'll take some questions afterwards. So if you have a question for John, post them in caps in the chat, and we'll grab them, and then we'll move on to the preview of Chapter 2, Fracture Line. I have to tell you, I've seen Chapter 2 already. It's about 25 minutes in length, and it is intense. Let's just say Chapter 1 is kind of looking at this in current times, what could be if something were to occur. Now, John, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Now, I don't want to give anything away, John, before we re-air Chapter 1, The Invitation, but it pretty much touches on a lot of things that we see going on today. And I will preface this by saying, after it's over, there's something in this chapter that definitely has not happened yet, and I hope it does. But I don't, like I said, I'm not going to sit here and give away spoilers. So, you have any opening thoughts on Chapter 1? And before we do that, who is the person that is creating the music and the animation, the great work that's involved making this all happen?
That'd be Keith Surlock. I hope I say his last name right. And go ahead and give the name of the studio, Bill.
Oh, good luck. I don't have that in front of me, but I'm sure the credits will appear at some point.
It's Rosewood. Yeah. And I just don't have the name right in front of me totally. And I've had a senior moment, but he's doing marvelous work. And this, as you'll see, this is animated, and all 22 chapters are going to be animated. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Now, the interesting thing is this sets in the format of what would happen this December. And I'm just letting people know that there has been a lot of interest for me to do go up and testify. And by the way, the name of the studio is Beck's Creek Soundscape Studio.
There you go.
That's why I just found it. So everybody listen in, and he's doing a marvelous job.
Absolutely. But it's not like you haven't been asked in the past to appear at a hearing either, John.
No, I've turned them down twice. I was asked to come up and meet with the Aero Committee, and then I was also asked to go up when David Grush testified, and I had actually been approached by one of the congressmen to go up there and testify. So both times I said no, but there's a reason behind it, and it's pretty simple. These hearings, some of them have been good. The one with Grush and the two pilots were good, but they provide no proof. And that's the issue I'm having right now. They want me to go up there for a reason, for my VA settlement, and I want them to get the VA to admit to them in writing that my records are classified. I have the proof myself, but if these guys would follow up and do their jobs, they could actually get the VA and have them explain why my records are classified. Now that's real evidence that would move the hearings forward, I think. Not just my settlement papers, which they want, and not just the stuff I got from Kyle's office saying they were, but currently have the VA admit they're not going to release my records.
You also have email exchanges as well. So you have quite a bit of information that the public is not aware of, obviously.
There's a lot going on behind the scenes right now.
Yes, let's just say that.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get right to it. Let's play Chapter 1, The Invitation. And for folks watching and listening, we are live on YouTube, KGRA-DB, on Facebook, KGRA Digital Broadcasting, X at Global Radio Live, Rumble, KGRA-DB. If you have a question for John after Chapter 1, The Invitation airs, please post them in caps, and we'll try to get to your questions before we begin to preview Chapter 2. So let's do this now. Enjoy if you haven't seen it. But trust me, this sets up an important precedence of what's to come. Because I've seen Chapter 2, and I was like, wow. And it, like, again, John, a lot of people were saying, oh, this is 11 and a half minutes, this first one. Well, you just wait for Chapter 2 because it's twice as long. And it's intense. That's all I'll say. No spoilers. All right. You ready, John?
Let's play it.
All right. I'm going to take us off. It seems like we're having an audio issue playing the file. John notified me with that. So we're going to try to do this a different way. So stand by, everybody. Let's see if it'll work this way. Hopefully it will. And I'm going to find it on the computer. So, John, as I do this, I'm glad you let me know because that's an issue with the StreamYard.
Well, not only that, but I got several messages.
Yeah, that's good. That's good that they notified us.
No
Let us
sound,
know.
yeah.
All right, I'm just going to try to bring it up a different way. And let's see how this will work. Hopefully it'll work this time. All right, let's see if I share the video file itself.
Welcome. Tonight, we will cover the moment when silence was broken.
Enjoy, folks.
Before the phenomenon fractured reality, before time became a weapon, one man stepped into the light to expose what others buried in shadow. This chapter begins not in a forest, but in a secure hearing room beneath Washington, D.C., where retired Air Force Sergeant Jack Barrett testifies about the most covert operation in human history. What he reveals will challenge memory, defy logic, and ignite everything to come.
Whispers in the blackened skies, echoes through the dreamless night. A mirror held beyond our sight. The first hello, the longest lie. Perhaps the stars were never far. Perhaps the end was just the start. We touched the void, it touched our hearts. A secret call we dared not fight. An enigma in the fading could see. First contact is an ancient key, unlocking who we're meant to be. Beyond the trees, a voice that sang what none could see. First contact is an ancient key, unlocking who we're meant to be.
The chamber lights dimmed as the witness took his seat. Cameras were forbidden. What followed would be transcribed, redacted, buried, yet ripple through time like a stone dropped in black water. The room was not a standard Senate hearing hall. This was a CCF, secure compartmented information facility, buried deep beneath the Capitol. The temperature inside was cold, almost intentionally uncomfortable. The thick, steel-reinforced walls were designed to repel electronic surveillance. Every few feet, recessed sensors blinked quietly. The hearing was convened by the United States Senate Select Committee on Intelligence. Seated among them, silent, heavy with presence, were the full members of the Gang of Eight. The Speaker of the House, the Senate majority and minority leaders, and the top chairs and ranking members of both intelligence committees. They did not speak. They observed. Every figure at the table represented the machinery of national survival, and they were about to be confronted with a truth they could no longer control. At the center table sat Jack Barrett, retired USAF technical sergeant, and his attorney, Michael Rourke. The sergeant-at-arms approached with a worn leather Bible. "Please stand and raise your right hand." Jack and Rourke stood. "Do you swear that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?" "I do," Jack said, steady. "I do," Rourke confirmed. They sat. The gavel struck sharply. Jack leaned into the microphone. "Madam Chairwoman, honorable members of the committee, before we proceed, I ask you to remember this. This isn't just about lights in the sky or classified projects. This is about human lives." He paused, gathering their attention. Men and women, soldiers, airmen, scientists, were exposed to phenomena they didn't understand. Some have died without explanation. Others have lived but not unchanged. What we encountered in Rendlesham was not an isolated incident. It was a doorway. And it wasn't open to study the unknown. It was opened to weaponize it. Jack placed his hands flat on the table. The human factor, the suffering, the exposure, the silence, was not an accident. It was the cost of ambition. Rourke leaned slightly into his own mic. "You are not merely stewards of classified information. You are stewards of consequence." The room grew still. Senator Maria Ortiz, chairwoman, began. "Mr. Barrett, please tell this committee what you encountered." Jack's voice, steady but loaded. "December 26th, 1980, 0300 hours, RAF, Woodbridge, Suffolk, England." Jack described the lights, red, blue, white, cutting through the black mist. The oppressive weight of static, the unnatural distortion of sound and sensation. "We believed it was a crash. But there was no wreckage, no fire, no debris. He leaned forward slightly. Instead, there was something else. Senator Halverson scribbled on his notepad. Senator Graham pressed, "Are you suggesting you experienced telepathic communication?" "I'm reporting what I experienced, Senator." Graham pressed harder. "Hallucination, then?" Rourke calmly interjected. "Objection. The witness is not offering speculative diagnosis." "Sustained," said Ortez. Jack answered anyway. "No hallucination. The communication was direct, intentional." Jack opened a binder labeled Project Condin, declassified. He tapped the page. British Ministry of Defence findings. Exposure to UAP radiation may result in cognitive confusion, physiological symptoms, and altered states of perception. He switched to a digital excerpt from the White House Office of Science and Technology. "Our technologies permit us to manipulate time and space." Jack let it settle. "That's no longer theory. It's public record." Senator Voss asked sharply, "Are you telling us the United States had this technology in 1980? Jack's tone hardened. "I'm telling you it was tested, and we were the instruments." Jack placed his sealed medical file forward. "After the encounter, I developed cardiac deterioration consistent with radiation-linked damage. Emergency open-heart surgery followed." He looked at them evenly. "Others suffered neurological decay, chronological dislocation." Jack's voice softened. The colonel who oversaw the third night said it bluntly. If what happened here ever went public, it would change the way people viewed reality itself. The silence thickened. Jack could feel it, the growing dread no one dared name. Senator Halvorsen leaned back heavily. "Why now, Mr. Barrett?" Jack's eyes burned with resolve. "Because the timeline is collapsing. Because the technology we encountered, the consciousness behind it, is no longer dormant. It is moving." He leaned in sharply. "And if you think the phenomenon is waiting for congressional approval before it changes reality again," Jack's voice lowered to a dark whisper, "you're already too late." Jack's voice remained steady as he continued. "The technologies seeded in Rendlesham, the manipulations of space-time, the experiments against Soviet assets, have quietly matured." He paused. "Today, elements of those technologies are fully operational, weaponized, and all without your consent." Michael Rourke stiffened slightly beside him. The scientists involved, the original architects of Operation Echo Frame, did not stop. They found new sponsors, private contractors. They moved underground. Jack's voice became a blade. "They are no longer studying the unknown. They are engineering it." A long, frozen silence fell. Jack let it stretch. Behind the mirrored glass, he knew. Decisions were already being made. And so, with one voice, Jack Barrett reopens a door that was never meant to be unlocked. The phenomenon is moving again, and the countdown has already begun. That's it for tonight. Hopefully, you enjoyed it.
Well, there you go. Now, I know there's fictitious names associated with the characters, Jack Barrett, etc. But there's a couple of really important details in this, especially the Condon report, MOD, acknowledging that due to prolonged exposure to radiation, encountering a UAP, which you did, you suffered from serious, even life-threatening illness. Is that correct?
Yes. No, it's true. The interesting thing, the stage of this whole 22 chapters is the fact that you had to tell it the way it's being told because most people aren't going to believe it. And that's even based on facts that can be proven. So Yes, there's fictitious names, but through the whole series from 1 to 22, there's going to be a lot of stuff in there. Some of it's been talked about over the years in different interviews, but it's never been all put together like it's going to be in this 22-part series, to include the fact that, yes, the injuries and all the people that showed up to take care of me, as far as once the injuries became known, there was a lot of inside help from inside government to help me get where I am today.
Another thing, John, is I noticed Gang of Eight. Will we ever get serious recognition of the topic? And this is not a disrespect for those in the House of Representatives that are trying their due diligence to try to get transparency regarding UAPs. Many of us are familiar with the names. Nancy, I believe it was Nancy Mace, even mentioned that they're overclassifying these documents, SAPs, to deny them access into a SCIF, which is mentioned in Chapter 1, by the way. That is a serious frustration with congressional members just trying to get access to even view any of these SAP programs, especially if they're regarding something that happened at Rendlesham, which we know not recently that they acknowledged that we are developing, manipulating time and space. So is there a connection? Because that seems to be the consensus that I'm reaching, that this is going.
Well, okay, except if you're at some of the highest committees or in the Gang of Eight, you don't have code word sensitive access, okay, which falls under SAP programs. So it's nice that these congressmen and senators are out there. Some of them legitimately are trying to find out what's going on. Others are curious to find out what's being hidden from them. And it's nice that it's all taking place. But as you notice, the first set of hearings, they had some people inside government testify. And as soon as they got to a certain area, they said, we can't talk about this publicly. We have to go behind closed doors. But even then, when they go behind closed doors, the majority of these people that are the people that are holding these hearings and stuff, they don't have access to these kind of programs or information. So therefore, they can call it stonewall, but that's just the way the system's set up, that they can only go so far. And then when these guys come out and say, I like to use the word trust me, bro, when they say it's there, but until you start producing some of this proof, it's not going to go anywhere. I mean, people are rightly so getting frustrated more and more that they'll move this along somewhat, and then there'll be some people like Gresh come out, they'll talk about him, they confirm he is who he says he is, and then he talks about things that he's either aware of or been told about, but then there's no evidence to support it. So until that changes, it's not going to go much farther.
Based on your memory recall, what do you remember? And I know it's taken time to put the pieces together for you going back to Rendlesham 1980. What do you remember you encountered at Rendlesham in the forest? What was your experience? Because I know Peniston and others there's varying different descriptions, contact of an object, a physical object. But for you, what was the experience like?
The essence of the 2 nights I was out there was I got close to something twice. And both times once I got close to it, I have no memory of what happened afterwards. On night 3 with this Adrian Costanza, he saw me go into and disappear. Well, again, I told you this is sci-fi, but the problem is if you start remembering things or things start making sense or coming back to you, all the debunkers come out and the skeptics come out and say, well, he's adding to his story now for attention and stuff. So here's the deal. Watch the 22-part series, read between the lines. And it is what it is. I cannot, there is some proof I can provide because there is some memory that I've regained. But at the same time, just watch the series And then I've got a book coming out in the fall. It's like my biography. And then some of the proof will be in there of some of the things that I've been able to uncover and remember since then. But I'm the kind of guy, and I don't say I've got all the evidence in the world to break this open, but I've got a lot more evidence than a lot of people at least are willing to show. And I plan on showing all that. And you can read between the lines in these next 21 chapters.
And that is the general consensus of the frustration that people have that have been involved with the research and have been studying this and observing it, and their opinions of this is that we do not ever, I have not yet seen any valid, credible evidence at any hearing presented, especially when you have people saying, well, this person showed me documents, this person told me this. I'm a person that held this position. They need, like you mentioned at the onset here, they need to present something, documents, anything, instead of just having people speak about their account, their experience, what they've heard. I think a lot of people are just to the point of, if they don't show us anything, it's worthless, because it's the same old, John.
It's not totally worthless, because even though I get frustrated with some of the stuff that's going on, they did move it forward in 17 with the article.
That's true.
They've got the hearings going. They've got the mainstream press talking about it. So that's all fine.
That's true.
But the problem is that they're going out into what I call woo-woo land. And what I mean by woo-woo is just simply they're asking you to accept people that are coming forward that held critical positions inside government, but they're not willing to back up what they're saying. And you can only go so far with, I was in this position, I was that position. And then sometimes it's clear what they were doing. Their titles, you can identify who they are. Other ones, they keep secret. Actually, there's no total proof of some of these people that are coming forward and talking about it, where they really stood inside government and what access they had. And none of them provide any evidence that they had the kind of clearance they would have had to look at the information they claim they've either been shown or heard about. I just can't walk in to a building and say, I'm here, show me everything you got. It's on a need to know basis and the clearance level you have. So these guys are really asking you to go out there on a wing and a prayer, and even the members of Congress. And I mean, like Burchett always comes out and says, trust me, this is real. And I didn't commit suicide if I died. But in reality, he doesn't have the clearance to look at what he'd need to do to really understand what's going on. He's just going on secondhand, words that are being told. And there's no way he could have seen any of the documents that would really blow this open. And so that's one of the issues I have with this. You're right. We're at the stage now, 2017, we're 8 years into this. Please, somebody put some evidence out to back up.
I agree. But John, here's the thing. Representative Burchett, he actually said that he's been pressured to lay off of this topic. And I'm sure some of the others may have also, I believe it was stirring the hornet's nest.
They're poking the bear, which is the defense.
Exactly.
It's the defense industries. That's part of the thing that's held up the last two bills. That they're not. Okay, this is how I can explain this. Okay, it just came out a few days ago that the last two bills got killed. There was actually bipartisan support to go forward with trying to get some more of this out, which was great. But the defense industry lobbyists got into the middle of it, and before it could go to the floor, it got killed.
Yep.
So the point is, these defense contractors are holding a gun over these guys' heads because they don't want this out because it'll point to classified programs. And I think is it Burleson, the congressman out of Missouri, just came out and said he's been shown proof that what we are seeing now is third generation TikTok.
Yep.
I don't believe it, and I'll tell you why. He doesn't have the clearance to see that kind of information. TikTok is highly classified information, whether it's ours or something else. and he wouldn't have the clearance. So that's where this starts to get hard to deal with. Please, if you're going to do a hearing, if you're going to talk about stuff, at least come forward with some evidence that it can be verified as real. And even if it's been declassified, it'll paint a picture. And that's one of the reasons why I won't go up there. You know, there's been a lot of talk, which I have the documents from Kyle saying my records were classified, my medical records were classified. I have some other evidence that they were, but that's old. That's from 10 years ago. I'm challenging somebody in Congress to step up and go to the VA and go to the DOD and say, or do a FOIA and say, are his records classified? That's what Kyle's office did. They wanted to know where my records were, and they got stonewalled. And in fact, my settlement documents show that the VA has on my records, but they're holding on to them and they won't release them, including when they got my settlement. They told me they weren't going to answer any of my FOIAs, or were they going to release any information to me, that they were taking care of me. And as far as they're concerned, they have nothing more to say about all this.
All right. If let's just say if, because we've been hearing recently about this may not, and I'm not saying all could be true. We could be dealing with multiple sources here. This is not to discount what experiences go through, witness testimony, etc. But let's just say this has a connection to deal with some type of a top secret weaponized program that was being used at the time when you were there those 2 nights.
No. We've got the evidence to prove that. No, we've got James Worrell and I did a lot of research. We have the evidence to prove what was going on. Yeah, that's the first book we put out, but we've learned a lot more since. And we have the evidence to prove that they called our incident the British Roswell. It was Area 51 on steroids. What was going on outside the back gate with the defense companies, both American and British, was amazing. And what we've uncovered, what they were doing and what technology they're working on. And this is where it gets interesting, because everybody believes Star Wars didn't even come about or even talk about till Reagan got elected. They were working on Star Wars in the 70s, even as late as the late 60s. And they were putting a lot of this together. And at that point, they moved it all overseas because they had a little problem with MK Ultra. And there were hearings and all that. And the CIA stonewalled Congress, which is, again, people say Congress has power. They don't. When MK Ultra got exposed, just go back and look at the history of it. The CIA destroyed all those documents that were subpoenaed to be given to Congress. They said they just ignored the subpoena and destroyed them, or they claimed they destroyed them. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. But then they also claimed they shut the programs down, but what they did was they moved them overseas. And guess where they moved them to? United Kingdom, with Marconi Company sitting out right outside the back gate of Woodbridge. And this is a conjecture. We will show that in the next book.
And that's what I want to address next. You say there is evidence that this is actually what took place, that it was some type of a test, a weapon of some sort.
And it's in this 22 chapters.
But
especially chapter 2, it's going to go into some of the details.
I know. It's intense. We don't want to give away spoilers. It's intense. That's what I said earlier. But is that part of the reason why I will never get to what the source was? Because in order to say what happened to you and others at Rendlesham is part of a program that can't be sourced and said, well, this is what is responsible, actually what caused his illness due to radiation.
Well, I'll give you a spoiler, okay? One of the people that's going to appear in episode 2 is called Hunter Green. And he's a character in this in the scientific piece, but he's actually somebody that was real that I was involved with. And because I'll leave it alone for now, we can talk about it next week. This particular person put out a post on Above Top Secret, and he was CIA for real. This is not somebody that you don't know who he is. And he was CIA at the time of our incident. He ended up leaving the CIA, and he was in charge of the weird science desk and all this Soviet technology. And he became a contractor for the DIA and the CIA. And he put a post on Above Top Secret, and he laid it out. He's actually the UAP doctor. He was actually the doctor for the DOD that involved injuries with UAPs. And he laid it out on Above Top Secret that my records were classified because they were tied to SAP programs.
I have that book actually. It's actually
well, the weaponization book. It's the proof, but it's real and it's factual. And that's the thing that frustrates me, because that book lays out some evidence, including I put in there a FOIA in the weaponization book that I actually asked the MOD a direct question. Are you working on technology off of UAPs? And they said they were. I've got the FOIA. And I've got FOIA out right now with the MOD that went all the way to the defense secretary on some of the weapon systems they would have been using at the time and technology. And that FOIA went straight to the defense secretary's office. And they're trying to figure out how they're going to answer me. And I've got stuff with the DOE right now, which it was funny. I got direct responses, not the automated ones. And also with a new office, which will be talked about in the series that most people don't know about, called the Net Assessment Office. And that office is actually more involved in this than all these other agencies combined. And if all you got to do is go look at what the Net Assessment Office is, and you'll understand what I'm talking about.
I've been doing some digging too on SAP directives on a certain website, and I'm finding out a lot of interesting information. In January, on January 17th, they released 114 pages of new security protocols regarding SAPs. It's on a certain website. You got to see what they're doing, John. They're really ramping it up and trying to prevent even Congress, anyone, without prior approval to get access to SAPs. But I believe President Trump recently has mentioned he definitely wants to address more transparency regarding UAP.
Well, that was a story broke out of Italy. I'm glad you brought that up. But there's been no confirmation of that. But everything else he's doing right now, if in fact he has any interest, which he claims he didn't, but if let's just say the FBI, which would be the agency that would, the new FBI people he brought in, because here's the fact of the matter when it comes down to this. Presidents come and go. So do the head, his cabinet, their cabinets and everything else. So they can hide stuff from them. Yes. And only deep down in the deep people that are their career people in the agencies. And unless you know exactly what to ask for or look for, you're not going to get it. And even if you find out something, they can deny. People don't believe this. They can tell the President of the United States no. They have to, Department of Justice then has to force their hand. And I'm in the middle of a FOIA right now, or trying to get my some of my DD Form 214s, and I got told directly by somebody in Congress that if they chose not to give me these records, there's nothing they can do to force this agency to release my records. They cannot force these agencies to give up information they don't want to give up.
Interesting you bring that up, because I'm seeing a lot of that, the denial processes going on. It's like I said, folks, you really need to look at the SAP directives that are being released now. There was one September, I believe, 14th last year that you should definitely look into how they revised it. But John, here's another thing. What about the public's general mistrust of government and those that are coming forward, their credibility? Also, how do we know it's not just part of a disinfo campaign?
Well, here's an interesting concept that's going on right now. The interesting thing was, I believe his name's Jeremy Corbell, right?
I'm familiar with Jeremy.
Yeah, okay. Jeremy came out the first of the year and said, trust me, there's going to be talk of some kind of alien craft coming towards this planet. Okay? After that, Lou Elizondo, who is actually admitted he was counter intel, who's been running the counter intel op on all this the whole time, in my opinion. He's just replaced Richard Doty. Richard Doty was the first guy that did all the counter intel when this came out in the 80s and 90s. Then we move forward to Lou Elizondo. And you could say it's good or bad what he's doing, but he's controlling the narrative and he's keeping it jumbled and mixed up. He came out recently, first privately, and now it's leaking out publicly, that yes, there is an object coming towards us. Then breaking this week, Javi Loeb came out, or last weekend, he came out and said, yes, there's an interstellar object. It's the second one that's hit this, our cosmos, and
Solar system, interstellar, yes.
It's interstellar. It's not from this, galaxy. So he came out and said that it's going to hide behind the sun and it's going to observe us. And I think the word was probe us, which is one of those words that draws a lot of attention. But that is very stunning because, as you know, Bill, you've seen too, and you've had privy to some of the other stuff. That's kind of partly what goes into this science fiction that was written before all this stuff came out.
Oh yeah.
So this is very, like I said earlier, this is very interesting times. And I don't want to sit there and be like all these other people have said disclosure's coming, but I can tell you something's shaking, and I'm not sure totally yet where this is going to end up. And I don't know if it's going to be disclosure confirmation, but as you watch the series, I'll lay out what I think is going to happen.
Like I mentioned earlier, chapter 2 is, in my opinion, absolutely intense. I had to watch it twice just to absorb it all. And it's 25 minutes approximately.
Then it goes in some of the technology that we experienced when we were out there.
Oh, yeah.
And this all came from declassified documents that we have. That's what I'm saying. You have to tell this in science fiction, because if you don't, no one's going to believe it. And it's just like most people don't believe the government would test stuff on us, and they don't believe that we're that advanced.
Look at history.
I know, but that's the thing, though. You just want to beat your head into a wall when over and over, even people that were involved, number one, say there's no way what we saw could be us, which there is proof that it was. And even I said that when our incident first took place. And then they come back, and they say there's no way they would have tested it on us. Well, how do you test weapon systems unless you test it on the best equipment in the world? You call me arrogant if I want, but the United States, followed by the United Kingdom, have the best technology in the world. And they have the best engineers, and they develop the best technology. And you have to test it at some point to see how it works.
Tic Tac, 2004. Nimitz Carrier Group.
That's what Burleson said now, that was, and then so did Russ Caulcart now. And it's funny because I was saying this 3, 4, 5 years ago, and I was getting attacked from everybody saying that I'm disingenuous, I'm a government stooge. And now magically, Russ Caulcart agrees with me. Can you believe that? It's amazing.
I've heard similar a few years back from a scientist who worked on a rocket program, and also mentioning a Russian scientist who was working on stuff. And this is what I was told. I cannot confirm this, but he was at a university and they came and confiscated all his research, took him back to Moscow, held him. Bye-bye, you can go now, but they took all his stuff.
Yeah, they do that all the time. Most people don't realize that on most of these college campuses, there's DOD facilities on them. Mm-hmm. And they take the brightest of the engineers and different things, whatever they're studying or working on. And they take a building. I could go back to a show. Do you remember, what was the one with Sheldon? It was Sheldon and his crew. I forget the name of the show, again, senior moment.
Okay.
But it was The Big Bang. And they had a 3-part series on how they came to Caltech, and they had a system that the government wanted, that they had a prototype for, and a patent for, and they came in and they had them develop it to make it work, paid them for it, and then they came back in the lab the next day after they told the Air Force they had it done, and the lab was empty.
I'm not surprised.
That's true.
I believe it.
But people just don't realize how deep and mischievous our government is and how they work, and they don't want to believe it. So that's another problem we have with all this. You could tell them the truth one day. Let's just say Javi Loeb's right. Let's say this object, it's interstellar, and it's actually a probe, and it's going to scan the Earth. Majority of the people now won't even believe it.
You'll never, and obviously there are people out there that are debunkers, and it's good to be skeptical. It's healthy to be objective. There's no doubt about that. So that goes without saying. But I think we need to have more observation of this object as it gets closer to the sun, so we can actually see what we're talking about here a little bit better.
Yeah, but you're never going to see it because whatever technology they've got
that's true.
pushed at it, they're never going to release it. They're going to control the narrative. And that's what bothers me about this, because I was invited back about 3 years ago now, that I was supposed to meet with Javi Loeb. I was supposed to get taken to NORAD and seen some information that they held at NORAD, including satellite stuff. And my first question was, my clearance isn't activated right now, so how could I get in there? And they just said, we'll take care of it. But I ended up refusing to go up there to meet with the Aero Committee and testify, so I didn't get to do this. But I'm wondering if they were going to show me some evidence back. This would have been 3 years ago that they knew what was going on. And I'm not saying it's true or it's not true, but it is interesting that this is coming up. And Javi said by the end of the year, they're gonna have some kind of reaction from whatever this is. Well, what does this whole thing I've been working on fall into?
And
a choice we have to make at the end of this year.
And this ends chapter 22, Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, it's kind of weird timing. I have one more thing to ask you, but because we want to definitely play this preview. And now you mentioned earlier that there was things located, equipment behind the gate at Rendlesham.
Yes.
And I have the utmost respect. I consider him as a friend of mine, Robert Salas, Maelstrom in the 60s. Was similar equipment, to your best of knowledge, also there at Maelstrom that could have created the same anomaly at that base?
This is where I'm being straightforward, guys. Salas didn't see it. He was underground. The people that were upstairs were the security policemen that reported seeing a lot of the same objects that we saw at Rendlesham. Okay. There's a SAGE radar system, if you go and research, and it'll be laid out in the book, that ties into a Marx generator that can create these type of effects. And that SAGE system and Marx generator were tied directly into the command center that was there. And this would create the effects that they saw. And the other interesting thing was, their excuse was, when they got all up in arms with that Wall Street Journal report, was that, well, why would we test it on ourselves, take a system down? Well, you'd have to know if that type of technology could take a system down, because the Russians were working on it. Number two, the rest of the systems were up, plus our government knew it was going to happen. But then their other excuse was, well, it took that if we'd have done it to the systems, it would have fried them. But here's the interesting thing: they're claiming the aliens did it, but their technology would be so much more advanced than ours. How did we figure out how to bring the system back online in 3 days then? Mm-hmm. We couldn't have brought it back online if we did it to ourselves, but we could bring it back if the aliens landed at Maelstrom and brought the systems down. Well, that's what I'm saying. This is one of those times I think they were being kind of honest about what happened there. They were actually coming out and saying, but it was interesting that they admitted that we had technology that could do that, which completely, they got away with it because people don't want to realize that that's just proof they tested on our systems, and yet everybody just got up in arms because, oh, well, that couldn't have been what it was. Well, that's not necessarily true. So there you go.
I would say simply, and like I said, I have the utmost respect for Robert Salas. I consider him a friend, and he has his own personal views and opinions on that that don't necessarily agree with yours. Let's just leave.
Yeah, but you have to go where the facts take you, Bill.
I understand.
And if I didn't do that myself, I would have said time travelers from the future came back and abducted us and took us away, or aliens from the future came back and took us. Because when I experienced my experience at the beginning, I couldn't explain it. And what would be the logical thing to fall back on? We don't have that type of equipment. We don't have those abilities, which, by the way, we did, which we were able to uncover. Goro and I were able to uncover. We did have a lot of that technology already, and we were working on it outside the back gate. And so I could be disingenuous and stay steadfast that it was the nuts and bolts alien craft that came down and landed. And I'm not doing that. So I get it with Salas sticking hard and straight with this, but he told a story and he doesn't want to do the research behind what I provided that could maybe clarify some of what went on. And no one has said that the effects that were created by this technology we had may not have opened up some kind of window for the real phenomenon to come through and interact also. That's most likely what was going on outside the back gate. They were experimenting on this phenomenon, which, by the way, once again, will be in this 22-part series.
I will also reference something that I think is important. This makes total logical sense. If we're going to see how our systems, our vulnerabilities, what better way is to test it on our own facilities?
Well, do you remember when I worked for Phenomenon Radio, right?
Of course.
Kevin Day, I interviewed him. I got the first interview with him, or the second, I think it was. And it was a good interview. And Kevin was talking about what he experienced and what went on. And I brought it to his attention. First of all, I understood why he didn't come clean with it at first, because it was classified. But there are countermeasures that can affect the radars on ships, aircraft, and like at NORAD and stuff. And the other sides have worked on it. We have it. And you can make the radars do things and show things that aren't real. Now, the phenomenon itself, which they're studying, can make you just visually see it differently, right? So he later admitted the radars could be manipulated. Now, Favor, who I didn't get the interview, I was gone. I had to go leave on a family emergency. Linda got an interview with him. They were using the brand new helmet that's now used on the F-35, which can affect things. But here's the thing that Day admitted. He said, if that's what I'm saying it was, they would have shot, if they would have been armed, which they weren't, they were in training, they would have fired the missile at it. It wouldn't have had anything to lock on. And guess what the missile would have done? It would have come back home to mama and blown the aircraft up. And do you remember the scene in Hunt for Red October?
Yes.
At the very end when the two subs and the captain got him to blow himself up with the missile. And the guy said at the end, "You're arrogant. You know what? You just killed us."
Yes.
That is exactly what countermeasures would do. And if they can make it fall on a false target or use time dilation, which was part of what happened to us at Rendlesham, to create it and have it there and have it dissipate, but it's really there in a different dimension, it would no longer lock in on it and would circle back around to the source and blow up the aircraft.
There is an interesting comment, and we're going to get to the preview of Chapter 2 in a sec. But Benno from Oz, I believe you are correct, John. I work in government. The go-to is control always.
Yeah, no, it is. And their Congress is, they get mad at me. They have no say in this. I just lived it. I got told that they can blow off the request for my DoD Form 214s, and all they can do is send them a letter protesting that they won't give them to me. Mm-hmm. That's what happened with my medical records. They refuse to release them. Now, people say that I have a right to them. Technically, I do. But when they get classified, I don't. Exactly. And most people don't understand that. So that's all I'm getting at, folks. This is deep. This is way deep. My assistant Earl's sitting over there listening intently right now. So
The cat
I'm in the cat cave, and we're doing. Remember how Roosevelt used to do the fireside chats? We're doing the campfire chats every Saturday.
It's a little bit before my time, but I do remember the clips.
Yeah, that's what's so the beginning of manipulation on humanity. When radio came into play, they now had a direct outlet to millions of people at one time, and they could influence them by what's on the radio.
Look at what War of the Worlds did.
Yeah.
In 34, was it? I mean,
that's when this all started. That was the first test on how they could influence humanity.
That is true.
And they took us down the line of nuts and bolts biological UFOs. And that's not what we're totally dealing with. And that's the problem. So many in ufology, or I call them ufologists, believe in the nuts and bolts, hardened biological entities or biological people like us that fly in mental crafts. And that's probably not true.
Well, I will say this. It's great to have people out there doing the research in whatever angle or hypothesis theory they have. More power to them. But I understand your point. But it's also great to have all these people trying to research and get to the truth of the matter. Though, what you're speaking about, and I've known you for a long time, and I got to say, 100%. Like someone.
All you got to do is go to my Facebook page, John F. Burroughs. And I wrote an article about Robert Bigelow was trying to talk about and tell us about the difference between nuts and bolts, UFOs, and what they really are. And he talked about it with George Knapp. He talked about it on 60 Minutes. And his comment was, I spent millions on this. I know what I'm talking about. And he says they're here among us. And right away, people are looking for reptilians or what are some of the Greys and all that?
Antids,
the Nordics and all that. But here's the interesting thing. This phenomenon, and it's in Project Condign, can change and be like a shapeshifter. And it can manipulate what you think you see, and it can go right into what your mind's willing to accept. And that's in Project Condign. It says that, and all you have to do is go back and look at a guy by the last name of Persinger, and it's online, and do some research and look at what it's called the God's helmet. And they did a study on people, and they put this helmet on them, and they manipulated their mind with the frequencies. And the reason why it was called the God's helmet was because 90% of the people that experienced it felt they had an encounter with God.
Wow. Well, we have to start wrapping up, but before we do, chapter 2, and like I mentioned this twice already, how intense it is. It's 25 minutes approximately in length. I had to see it twice. I there's so much there. Now, this is like back to where it all began, Rendlesham, 1980. When you were creating this, writing this, and even viewing it and listening to it now, was it like reliving the whole thing all over again?
Chapter 2, yes. Twice. I've had experienced it twice now. I wrote it, and it gave me the chills when I put it together. And then once we got it all together, animated and everything.
Oh, what a great!
And I watched it. It was like at one point I felt like I was in the forest again, reliving what happened.
Again, credit to Keith out there, the content creator. Excellent.
Keith Surlock, and I'm gonna give it is the name of his studio because I always screw it up. Is Bex? Oh God! See, I can't find it now. I don't like technology. Let me see if I can get it so he gets the proper credit. It's Beck's Creek Soundscape Studio. And as we close tonight, there'll be another song that I wrote, and he put it together. And I want to give a shout out to Keith because I know he's watching. Sorry, I messed it up. Next time I'm going to have some footnotes in front of me. I'm going to blame it on the cat because he got into him before we went live, Bill, and he kind of screwed up my notes. So I'd be sitting there searching, but this guy's doing magical work, and some of these songs that we're going to put together a 10 playlist on Spotify, the first 10 songs that we got, not from the chapters, but just from the overall experience I've had. And they are moving people. These songs are moving. And Keith is doing a marvelous job, and he calls it the Ranch Crew, that are doing a marvelous job putting this together.
Totally agree. All right, we're going to play the promo. It's a short promo for Chapter 2 before we wrap, and then we'll have some closing thoughts, and then we'll wrap up. And remember, Chapter 2, Thursday, 5:30 p.m. Eastern on KGRA Digital Broadcasting on Facebook, KGRA DB on YouTube, KGRA DB on Rumble, at Global Radio Live on X. So let's play this quick promo for Chapter 2. Chapter 1. Jack Barrett appears at a congressional hearing held in a skiff before the Gang of Eight. Now, Jack Barrett's return to the past begins. The Rendlesham event is reframed not as an encounter, but a convergence engineered by global powers and something other. This is where it all really, the first chapter sets it all up, like if it was happening in present time at a hearing. Now it really going back to Rendlesham. Get ready for the next 20
Yes, Jack is exposing to Congress what they have no clue is taking place. And I want to reach out to, I know Pat's traveling right now, but the attorney is the guy that represented and worked with me over this whole case, Pat Frasconia. And he says some very, very interesting things about what Congress thinks they know and they don't know. Okay. And I know, again, that I'm sounding a little, I don't know what I'm sounding like, other than they really don't. They don't have control. And I know this probably will rub the MAGA people the wrong way. I know Trump wants to have control, but they're starting to expose just how deep the state is and how much they're trying to manipulate and keep control from him, his cabinet, and Congress themselves. So this is real. I mean, forget about UAPs. Just look at the stuff that's playing out right now on what's being held back and the manipulation that's going on.
Couple of more comments before we leave for the night. Don't forget about Thursday, folks, because you do not want to miss this now. This is where it's really going to get intense. I'm just going to put up a couple, John.
Okay.
I know from Oz, subliminal messages on many forms of mass media. That's how they control and manipulate.
Yeah, and if you want to see that, for real, go to YouTube. Go to a series called The Soft War. And the person that did it, The Soft War, put it on there, did it for the DOD. He was working with the Office of Net Assessment. And he actually was involved in the initial investigation of Rendlesham for CNN. So it's there. The proof is there. It's just the problem is most people don't want to look at the truth. They put the truth out in front of you, and then it never goes anywhere.
Excellent point. Here's another comment from Michael in chat. Yes, it's not nuts and bolts. I feel it's interdimensional.
That's where we're going with this, folks.
So, Michael, you're going to want to tune in and check it out. But the closing song as we play the outro, give us a little background on this before we end this.
Actually, it's just listen to it. The few people that have heard it, it moves them. It's brought a couple people to tears, including a couple people that said they've had their own experiences. The words are very moving, and the music in the song is even more moving. So anyway, if you want to go to my Facebook page during the week, I'm on there. I've got different things posted, different articles. You can go to Bill or me, and you can ask questions. And all these songs are posted. And if you got a question about the song or want to talk about how it moved you, or you can even give me some advice on some kind of song that you'd like Keith to put together that might have something to do with this whole thing. We're open to that. And like I said, we're going to have a 10-song playlist on Spotify coming out pretty soon. So, and next week, we're going to have 2 new songs for people on opening and closing next week.
Also, we will be back to recap Chapter 2 and preview Chapter 3 a week from tonight, Saturday, probably the same time, 8 p.m. Eastern. And
hopefully we'll have another guest join us to record.
Yes. Also, I encourage those to participate in the chat. Post questions. If you have any questions for John, post them. I will get to them and we will discuss it. And I want to thank those that participated tonight, Michael and Benno, specifically for your questions and comments, and everyone else. So, John, like I said, John and I will be back next week, but we'll gonna
join us every Saturday night for a campfire. Bill, John, and Earl, with hopefully a special guest now and then. So,
well, till next Saturday, everyone have a great rest of your weekend. Be well, be blessed, be safe, and enjoy this song as we end this for tonight.
And let me know if it has an effect on anybody, even if you listen to it after we aren't live and you just listen on the repeat. So, on
behalf of John and myself, all of you have a great night. Thank you for watching and listening, and we will see you next week. Don't forget, Thursday, 5:30 p.m. on all the KGRA platforms. Have a great night, and we'll see you next week. Enjoy this song.
We look to the sky, but the sky looks back. Through radar ghosts and silent tracks, a shimmer in the field, a whisper in the code. It's not just seen, it's something we're shown.
Memories rewritten in the blink of an eye. Lights in the forest, a pulse in the sky. It knows our blood, it bends our fear, and every step draws it near.
The phenomenon knows what we try to hide. It lives in the cracks where reason dies. It wears a mask that we project and gives us back what we expect. It sees through flesh, it reads the soul. It's part observer, part control. The signal moves where silence grows, and still we ask what no one knows.
It chooses the dream, it edits the past. A warping of time that happens so fast. A trigger word, a flash of light. You're never the same after that night.
It's not a ship, it's not a star, it's right here wherever we are. A waveform mind, a sentient gate. It makes you see, then makes you aware.
The phenomenon knows what we fail to see, that we are the lock and it is the key. It tests our faith, it scans our genes, shows
trees, but I saw it inside me. It wasn't from somewhere else. It was here, and it was waiting.
It called to the sages, it haunted the spies. It bled through the screens and slipped past the lies. From orphaned nests to desert skies, it watches the watchers, wears no disguise.